course Forschung zur Nachhaltigkeit, which translates to Research on Sustainability, is an e-learning course which has been designed at the Chair for Sustainable Management. It is open to students from all over Germany who are interested in the subject. The course aims to achieve the following objectives: to give students the possibility to adopt a research-oriented attitude, identifying and refining an own research interest in the wide-ranging field of sustainability, and guiding students along the way, thus using a purely digital format. Therefore, video has been utilized in order to give students a possibility for a summarizing reflection on their own learning process, starting with developing interest in certain topics and ending with the formulation of a scientific research question. The soft skills which are tackled in this course are communication and content creation. Additionally, the methodical skill of producing and editing a scientific screencast is trained. Because the course is purely based on e-learning, students need to structure their working processes themselves. Concluding the work in this course with a video poses the challenge to reflect on their own course of awareness throughout the course and depicting such thoughts in a coherent manner. We therefore gave students the task to produce and edit a video which summarizes the working process throughout the course. The aim of this video is not to retell the single activities, but rather to illustrate the development of the own perception of sustainability throughout the previous tasks. In order to focus the contents of the different videos on the most relevant aspects, the time frame has been limited to 5 minutes maximum and guiding questions have been provided beforehand. In doing so, video format serves a few different purposes, all being relevant for the overall goals of the course Research on Sustainability. Developing a certain area of media competence among students, providing guidance for working and learning processes in the e-learning format, leading students to express internal dynamics of their own knowledge development, as well as visualizing and explaining these dynamics in a structured format. The assessment of the course has been based on a structured format which evaluates the students' contributions. Each of the tasks of the course has been operationalized and put in an evaluation form. After completion of the course, teaching staff checked all contributions for completeness and marked each task within the spectrum of not satisfying to fully satisfying. The concluding video, being the final and summarizing part of all tasks, received special attention in the assessment process. However, assessment was solely based on content-related elements of the videos, as special knowledge with respect to creating or editing video is no requirement of entering the course and therefore must not be a criterion for assessment. The assessment rather focused on the clearness of narration and the illustration of the own journey of knowledge throughout the course. This also marks one of the major difficulties, separating the optical impression of the video material from its content. Purely descriptive, thus professionally produced videos, simply do not fulfill the task at hand as well as reflective and well-narrated videos, which are poorly edited, do. Because of the very much content-related focus of the video production of students, the focus of assessment was on the narrative aspects of the videos. Naturally, these are not as obvious to detect and analyze as purely technical aspects of video, for example regarding quality of filming, audio track, etc. The assessment was therefore strongly based on the reflective depth of the narration concerning the individual development of knowledge of students throughout the course. In this respect, one of the greatest difficulties of this task became visible. Managing to bridge the gap between formulating instructions, guiding questions and other necessary scaffolding beforehand, and not being in direct contact with students during the course. This is of course inevitable in the e-learning design of courses like this, but it supposedly hampered the depth of reflection of students within the video. In providing guiding questions for this task, the aim was to give students orientation as to what they are supposed to reflect upon, as the teaching staff has no insight into previous experiences of students regarding reflective tasks. However, providing guiding questions always entices students to simply stick to answering these, without putting much thought into a deeper reflection of what they experienced throughout the course. Furthermore, the aim of giving a rather large cohort of students the possibility to create a video illustrating a reflection of what they perceive to have learned naturally comes with a few inaccuracies in the subsequent assessment. As soon as such a complex mental task like a reflection of knowledge development is supposed to be assessed in a standardized format, a greater amount of experience needs to be gained with respect to the operationalization. First experience is proof that it is quite difficult to measure the soft skills communication and content creation, as they are very qualitative in nature and can only fully be evaluated in the entirety of the resulting reflective videos. Overall, the main advantages of deploying a task format like this are posing a fairly new challenge to students with producing and editing video content, a time-efficient assessment of reflective tasks in courses with large cohorts, empowering students to dig deeper in their reflections by taking a more process-oriented perspective on their own development of knowledge, not only describing what they perceive has happened, but also how they feel the knowledge has been built, aiming for short and illustrative presentations in both audio and visual manner. With respect to monitoring, it can be said that, depending on the course design, giving students the task to reflect via the medium of video has shown to be perceived as innovative and somewhat different from usual tasks. This, however, leads to the necessity of guiding students through this process. We would therefore encourage teaching staff to regularly check back with students and the work they are producing. In case this proves to be impossible, as in the context of the course Research on Sustainability, great attention needs to be put on formulating the necessary instructions. Those have to balance the gap between being rigid enough in order for students with no prior experience to know what to do, while at the same time offering enough freedom for students to complete such an individual task like a reflection in their own style. With respect to engagement, it can be said that as many students normally are not familiar with producing and editing videos, the provision of sound guidelines is paramount for keeping up engagement. No student is motivated by searching for software online and trying to figure out technical aspects in addition to the other workload. In our case, the provision of one possible way from start, like finding free software and installing it, to finish, like exporting and uploading the produced video, proved to be helpful for students. With respect to feedback to students, it can be said that, of course, feedback needs to be clear and understandable for students. We are therefore sending each student the assessment form after completion of the course. This includes not only the numeric evaluation of their performance, but also a small statement either highlighting positive aspects or giving advice for future improvements.